Today I have a special guest all the way from Scorum in Rotterdam himself, Mr. Milky the Barber. Jason, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, welcome to Scorum. It's Milky. I'm doing well, Curtis. How are you?
Good, my friend. You're all good and set, my friend. I'm looking forward to this one.
Yeah. We're going to be doing a razor faded pompadour on one of my best regulars, Patrick. So I'm going to go really all the way to the skin through here. I'm showing you some tricks with the shaver, the straight razor, how I like to work with guards into this haircut. We're going to be working down from a little bit of a modified baseline, connecting the top, drying the whole thing with some drying techniques you might not have seen before in the videos, because I do work a little bit differently, especially because of the products Patrick uses in his hair. So we're going to go through that at the end as well. So let's get straight into this then. We are so glad to be back open. It's been about a month since barbershops were allowed to reopen in the Netherlands. We've seen actually some big changes in the shop so far. We moved from our almost notorious walk-in system at this point to a fully appointment-based system. And it's been a huge shift, especially you can ask a regular like Patrick, or even I've got my friend here, Andrew, as well. He's been coming to the shop for about 6 years. And he remembers when he'd have to stand in line for, you got there, what, at 10 a.m. and you'd get your haircut at 4?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. They both have been customers since the shop was actually on the other side of the street where we have our school now. The first thing I'm doing, if you've seen a couple of our lives before, yeah, I'm sure this is not terribly new information, but I'm just wetting the hair down, really making sure to use the mist rather than the concentrated so that you get even dampness in the hair. Because of the stretch hair has, if you have some hair that's more wet than other pieces of hair, the hair will stretch. So you'll think you're cutting a straight line. Between your fingers, it'll look like a straight line. Then when you dry the hair, you'll have a broken line. It'll be wavy. This is also the point of the haircut where really, if this was a shop situation, I'd be getting excited. I'd be checking my schedule to make sure I had time to really do the haircut justice. Because already you can start to see that pompadour shape form. Even with all of that extra length and weight in the cut, you can really start to see our haircut forming. So we're going to start with parting of the temple here. Just running along the parietal ridge. You want to make sure that this takes out the whole of the front hairline and really separates that pompadour hair on top from that fade hair on the sides. And then for me, it's very fast to work both sides at the same time. So I'm going to go through. I'm actually going to take a parting on this side as well. For me, this makes the balance of the haircut so much easier to achieve because I can see both sides at once. I can set lines on both sides at once. I can fade out dark spots on both sides at once. So it's not like I do half the haircut and then I go to this side and I go a little too short and now I have to do the whole haircut basically from square one again. So we're getting all of this hair up here. If there's a low crown, I might take this section in the back a little bit lower. But with Patrick's hair, the occipital bone is right here, and the high point's here. So I want to give this some roundness, or actually I want to give this some body. So I think we might actually leave the crown square. But this is a good way to separate. I'll be able to pivot how I need to. So I'm going to go straight into our baseline. But I'm actually going to do the baseline a little bit differently. I think I've seen some people in the past call it a contour line. It's a baseline that's not following parallel to this parting because it's going to go short here. But because I know I'm going to be going to the skin here, and I have to adjust for the wide points of the head here, here, and here, as well as where those dents go into the skull. I'm going to be setting my baseline actually physically on the head rather than elevating the hair off the head. So I'm going to go in. I'm going to find the occipital bone. I'm going to set my comb on it. I'm going to give the hair a little bit more water first. And then this is just clean water. I know that I'm going to be blow drying Patrick's hair. And I really want his hair to stay as clean as possible for this process. So there's actually just clean water in here, clean combs. Especially when you're working with someone's hair, say, for the first time. It's really important that there's nothing in the hair that's going to, unless they're a greaser, unless they come in with a lot of like, pink REUZEL, green REUZEL, Murray's, something very old school like that in the hair. You really want the cleanest hair to work with at the start. I'm going to go in right on the occipital bone. I'm just going to take a bit of length off there. For me, doing it with the clipper, rather than doing it with the scissor at this point, even though I'm going to go in and refine it with the scissor, is nice because I already have a little bit of the graduation. And it's really important while you're doing this that you keep your comb following the shape of the head. So Martin, actually, if you come over here and you get down on an angle, you can see that comb is square to the head. Because I'm not trying to create a wedge shape. I just want that hair to lay square on the head while maintaining a little bit of weight so that I don't get, it's such a wild disconnection between the top and sides. And so I get a little bit easier of a blend, a little bit smoother of a blend, just a little bit more contrast. The contrast for me in the fade really does a lot to make sure that the fade has a little bit more geometry to it, a little bit more of a look to the whole haircut. So going in, making sure that this is laying right. And you can see already the shape of the haircut that's laying really nice and square. Sleeve is driving me crazy. Cool. All right. So this is just spine of the comb on the occipital bone, spine of the comb on the wide point behind the ear, following through if there's maybe a protrusion in the front on the parietal ridge. So now we are going around to this side, and I'm just following this around. So this is still a baseline technique. I'm still establishing the cool hair from the boring hair, but I'm using this baseline, this contour line, to establish the transition between the cool hair and the boring hair. Is right away, I'm able to say, well, this is going to be the short hair of the fade. This is going to be the long hair of the top. So with a technique like this, you can also maybe do a long trim with a high taper, where you start at the taper in the back to secure that transition between the long lengths and the short lengths. Go through, make sure this is nice and smooth. If a little bit of hair jumps out, keep in mind you are going to go over it with your scissors again, just to make sure everything's nice and clean. I'm going to take a step back. One of your most important tools you use every day, and maybe underuse, is the mirror. Because you can see things at a distance, because it's not only the distance between the customer and the mirror, but the mirror to the customer again. So you really get the look of the balance of the haircut over just the little details you see when you're like this. You also really get to see how the haircut will look walking down the street. You put your finger up, Martin. Is there a question? You just agreeing with me?
Yeah.
You got Martin doing the camera work today. He's one of the other barbers in the shop, one of the newer guys. He's still learning. It's okay.
Fuck you.
Thank you, Martin.
You're welcome, mate.
So now I'm going through and I'm just pulling all that hair down to that baseline again and connecting it between the fingers. This is just trying to get any little hairs that didn't lay down into the comb. I'm using, these are actually my bigger scissors. I'm using my Mizutanis, the Scorm ones. I like the 6s, but I dropped them. And I still have to get them sharpened again. So I'm using, it's a 6.5 scissor. Normally, I would really like to use a scissor for scissor over comb, just because the hair melts in it. And especially for scissor over comb, I like using a slightly longer scissor because the blades pivot a little bit at a different point. So I only have to open my thumb a little bit to get the blade open enough to take that hair away. This is where I think a lot of barbers really see themselves using the longer scissors, is because it's such an efficient way to do a scissor over comb technique, especially if you're taking a lot of length out of the top and sides. And I do a bit of scissor over comb, especially when I'm refining a fade, but it's not something you're probably going to see too much of in the demo today. So now I'm going to really wet the hair down again. It's very important that you get the hair re-wet to the roots, because if you leave the roots dry where they've been drying into the partings, then no matter what you do for the rest of the haircut, that parting is going to be in the hair. And even if you technically connect the top and sides, when you go to style it, the top and sides are going to be visually disconnected because you're going to have this ring where the roots are opening between the top and sides. So this is a really important step, is redampening the hair. And this is something where you see, if you're like struggling, like how is the hair naturally growing that way? It's probably a direction you push the hair and then it dried into that. So now we're going to move into our next parting. We're going to go from the temple, we're going to go into the crown. So we're not going to the high point, we're going past the high point, just into the crown, pretty much where the hair naturally wants to split. This is going to give us a little bit more of a connection between the top and sides by connecting this to that contour line. It's also going to allow us to remove a little bit of weight in that line so that the hair, you know, like right now, it looks pretty much like a bowl cut. So this is going to give us a little bit more control to keep that bowl cut feeling out. So as always, I'm going to separate the hair at this wide point behind the ear because this is the biggest transition in the haircut we're going to see, because I'm going to leave a little bit more weight in the front and a little less in the back. So I'm going to take my section between the fingers. You can see I've got my angle here from the contour baseline. I'm going to pull it up. Really make sure, maybe Martin stand right in front of me, that this hair is not doing this. This is something you see a lot of guys do. They get all that hair in their fingers and then they do this. And you're going to take all that off and you're going to have this big heavy line and it's not going to work at all. It's really important that you get that hair up, straight out of the head, or maybe even a little higher. Just take a little bit of weight out to give it that same kind of squareness you see in a military flat top, where the angle isn't wide square, it's more of a narrow square. Next section. Again, all that hair from the scalp out between your fingers, check. Take that little bit off. And it's okay to take a little bit too, just make sure you meet that crease between the baseline. If you're just trying to take the corner off right now, try and take a little bit of weight out. See, all that extra length in there. What this is going to do is this is going to create a really strong interior of the haircut that really lets us do a lot of work with the blending shear to create texture, but the haircut's going to have a strong internal geometric shape, and that's what's really going to grow in well for him.
Milky, we got a question, bud.
Oh, perfect.
So James Kinman asked, so after you set the guideline, you just use the scissors to knock out the little hair sticking out from the line?
James, that is a very good question. Yes, it is what I do. So the scissor is going to take away all the hair. I could spend an extra, couple of minutes like combing the hair, picking it up with this clipper, combing the hair, picking it up with the clipper. Or I could just take it between my fingers and I could just knock that little bit of hair off the ends. And so I just find that to be a really easy way to do it. I really like to work with my scissors. For me, this is really the most fun portion of the haircut. It also, the more you work with scissors, the more expensive your haircut looks. Sorry, James, I'm going to continue with your question. I'm just going to tell you what I'm doing next here. Is I'm just taking my sections back, and I am going to direct them back a littlest bit just to leave a bit of weight towards the front. Plus, so what I was saying, Jim, with the scissors is that the more you work with your scissors, the more impressive the haircut's going to feel for the customer. So I always like to do as much cross-checking and as much little scissor work as I can, because for a lot of people, they equate it's no different, and we know it's no different. But for a lot of customers, they equate in their head that a little extra scissor work makes the haircut a little bit more fancy, something they would see from, the more expensive barber.
I would agree, Jason. I ran into that when I was cutting hair as well. The more you use your scissors, they seem to you act like you knew what you were doing more than just clipper cutting.
Which is exactly it. I've got this one patron, and I just did his hair this week. And what he wants on the sides, I'm not making fun of him, to be super clear. But what he wants on the sides is comb length hair. He wants me to do it with the scissors, but he wants me to put the comb on his head and do the whole thing scissor over comb. This is a one guard. I could do his whole haircut in 4 minutes. The guy's almost bald. It's a one guard. He just wants the one guard up. He likes it a little bit square, so I could do a baseline and then a one guard, and I would be done. Haircut would take me 10 minutes. He does the whole thing. If I do the whole thing with shear work, he books his appointment every single time. He comes back in the 3 weeks, and that's only because I'm willing to do it with scissors, while a lot of barbers wouldn't do it. And I mean, that's the thing. You see a lot of that is what Curtis said is the customers just think that the scissors are a better tool. And this is something that Rob's been saying to every barber he's taught since the shop opened nearly 10 years ago, is that they're the same tool. A clipper is just, so you got to move, Martin. A scissor is just a bunch of little clippers. Or sorry, a clipper is just a bunch of little scissors. I hope that answers your question, James. It was a bit of a tangent, but I'm also focusing on the haircut. Do we have any other questions coming in, Curtis?
Nope. None as of right now. I don't see any. Let me double check. What comb are you using? I can answer that one. Using the Cricut silk comb.
Yes, I am. I like this comb because I like the fine teeth and I like how wide these teeth are. So I can pick the hair up, especially you'll see I do it a lot when I'm blending, and it can lay loosely here, but I've got these teeth to really pull all that hair out of the scalp with. So you see, there we go. I section with the wide tooth, and then I go to the roots, to the roots, to the roots. Hair is out of the scalp. Hair is not dropping. Hair is staying out of the scalp. I'm just taking that off to make sure it connects. We're meeting ourselves in the middle here. And like I said, I always like to work with the whole top, each motion. I don't do one whole side and then the other one, because now I can always check my balance. And if there's especially if there's a mistake, if you go a little bit shorter on one side and it's your second side, you don't have to completely redo a portion of the haircut. We all know that feeling where we do a whole side and we're like, this is beautiful. And then the other side, and then the guy turns his head and you're like, well, we're back to square one. So now we're looking, and what's great about this, what I really love about this is you can already start to see that transition in the hair, that movement, that blend. You're already transitioning from the skin to here, even though we haven't even started the fade yet. So then the same thing here. I'm just going to direct these sections just the littlest bit back down to the baseline, just to keep a little bit of extra weight, because then when this all comes back, we're still going to really be able to see that nice connection between top and sides. There we go. Cool. So now you really like to stand close to me, Martin.
Yeah.
Okay. So now we got this. This is looking good so far. We still got ourselves an undercut. We're going to redampen the hair at the roots. Make sure that all of those partings are really natural. You want to take all of this dried sectioning out. Now we're going to go in for our next section, which is going to be running parallel to the hairline here, to the apex of the head. Now this might look like it's a lot of sections, but it's really not so far, as we've really only worked with 3 big motions. We've worked with the split between the sides and the top, the split between the crown and the sides, and now we're just really working with the split between the apex and the crown, and then this is just the last one. All the little sections inside of it are just so the work stays clean, but these, I mean, they're intuitive, as you really feel them and see them into the shape of the haircut. See, I have my line there, connecting out to square. Again, making sure that this hair is not dropping, it's coming straight out of the scalp. There. I can't tell you how important this is, because if that hair gets pulled down, you're going to end up with weight, and all of this graduation is going to be useless. You won't have gotten anything with it. There's a really quick way of doing this too, where you actually use that weight, where you pull all the hair down to here, you cut it. It's a really quick way of working, and it's something that we do a lot in the shop. But if I have the opportunity, especially to teach a method, some way that you really want to enjoy each step of the haircut, which I always take my time with Patrick's hair. This is, for me, the best way to make sure that you get that perfect haircut, even if it's not the fastest one. Much
while you continue there, Milky, got a couple questions. What would be the name of this haircut from Christopher?
Faded pompadour.
And Mr. Charles asked, the key here seems to be sectioning. Can you review?
The sectioning is a way, what I did here is I just pulled the hair back, I kept this length here, and I just connected it into that length at the ear. The sectioning for me is the way that I realize kind of the vision of the haircut. Is I see the haircut in my head, I see what excites me about the haircut, and the section is how I take each piece and I connect them. So I guess maybe a good analogy, or we'll see because it's off the top of my head, is you think about a puzzle. You have a big puzzle here, and there's this beautiful picture on it. But you have all of these different creases between the puzzle pieces, you know, where they're broken apart so you can put them together. The sectioning is the lines around the puzzle pieces. It's how you connect this bigger picture of the haircut together. I hope that that kind of makes sense. So if you learn how to see the haircut and how to see how the hair moves inside the haircut and to see especially what you're working with already in the haircut, you know, because not every guy is going to walk. Like I've been cutting Patrick's hair for, I mean, almost 2 years now. So like, this is my last haircut. I can see the haircut I gave him already in the hair. But if a guy walks into your shop for the first time and you go to do a haircut on him, you might get to this point and you might be so excited and you pull it and it's only this long. And you've done all this work and it's only that long. But the sectioning is how you really look at that and you see those things and you go, well, if the hair's this long here, but I know to keep the shape it's here, okay, how do I connect that? And then that is the section.
And Charles, I also asked, how would you adjust for this haircut for curly or wavy hair?
I would leave it longer. I would kind of exaggerate the corners a little bit, just because I know that those curls are in that wave is going to shrink back up. It really depends on how tight the curl is. If it's like a guy walks into the shop and he wants kind of a pompadour shape and afro hair, totally different technique. But if a guy walks into the shop and he's got, like, I mean, Patrick's hair is quite straight. If his hair was even straighter, I would probably not have started at the contour line. I would have started with the high baseline because I know I want to get that square shape, and that if the hair is straighter than this, it's just going to stand out of the head. But if there's a bit of wave in the hair, maybe I would have actually even done a lower fade because I know that that hair is going to wave a little bit and it's going to take some of the weight out because the hair is just, it's going to move, it's going to lift off of that baseline. So I would leave a little bit more weight around most of the haircut just because I know the hair is going to lift and take some weight out for me. And that weight is also going to make the curl a little bit more manageable. But that really is one of those questions where you would have to see it in the chair because a little bit of wave versus a lot of curl, as we all know, is two very different haircuts. So now everything's just, you see, roughly connected there. So now we're on to undercut territory and we're into connected haircut territory, even though we haven't actually connected that top to the sides yet. But you can see that all of this will brush back and he'll, you know, lazy in the morning, can be a slick back, a little bit extra work, we'll be able to get a nice pompadour in there. So now we're going to take another section here. This is just following almost opposite of our previous sections. It should be almost running perpendicular to them. And this is just to connect that front into this length here, really heavy. I'm just taking a little bit off in there. You want this to be, I mean, as heavy as you can make it because this is really just about connecting the hair. It's not about it's not really about what the length on top is going to be. This is just going to remove this little bit of weight here and the split. As you can see, visually it doesn't look hugely different, but when you dry the hair, it's going to make a significant difference. So now again, just the same thing on the other side. Pull all this hair. Remember, I'm going from the scalp here. I'm directing all of it down. It's a little bit of disconnection. A little bit of disconnection. There we go. Cool. Excellent. So now, at this point in the haircut, you should really be able to see the shape. You can see it graduates in the back a little bit. You can see where it sticks out with a little extra length in here. See that length sticks right out. That's the beauty of sectioning too, is when you know you're sectioning, you're able to find the weight right away. See, okay, we're right back in balance. So now this is where it gets really interesting, is this is really, now that everything's connected, you can really start to play with the silhouette of the haircut you want. So what I want to do with Patrick's haircut, and this is something I've been doing a lot, I did some really cool trainings with Rob, and he showed me this, and I mean, I was super nervous about it at first, because I had been, in the barbers I talked to previously, always round, you're going to want to be in, it's a profile section. It's a mohawk section. I'm just running about maybe a centimeter on either side of the middle of the hairline. But maybe stand there. A lot of people will round this here to remove the weight and then keep this square. But what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to keep it square. I'm actually going to leave a bit of a corner in the back because this is going to give a lot of fullness to the crown that'll balance out the very forward apex and very low occipital bone. This will also create a really cool little angle here because you will see that this is square. Again, all that hair is coming straight out of the scalp. This is where it's all, you can see it kind of rounds up here, goes up, and that's the point. And I know I can take all of this away. And you can see that I'm cutting that silhouette that I'm looking for. Really, I'm just cutting it into the hair there. Next section, just running parallel to it. I'm not over directing all the way back because I want to keep the top square. So we're kind of just directing it a little bit back to the previous section. Going back into that square crown. And I'm trying to keep, especially that point above the ears, completely square. Taking just a little bit off there at the corner because most of this hair actually connects down to the side. But I want to make sure that nothing's sticking through. And then we're just, same thing on the other side. Balance is huge. This is a big thing that not only do you train into your hands, you really need to train into your eyes. Is you just need to be able to look at something and know that it's right. And if it looks right, it is right. And that's the biggest thing is, especially when you work with, your regulars and you work with the patrons that you really, you cut their hair every 3 weeks for a year or two. And you know that to cut a balanced haircut, maybe you have to leave it a little bit longer on one side just so that that crown lays down. Or to cut a balanced haircut, you know that you can go maybe a little bit shorter in the crown or the nape than you would usually go on someone, but that's going to create the balance. And that's really, I think, where the fun of it comes into. Is today I'm giving you a basic mold, a way you can do a haircut, but what's really going to get exciting is how you discover how this haircut is so different on every single person. Because I know that if I was to do this haircut on Andrew, because I think I have done, Andrew normally got this haircut, and then he sat in my chair, and I said, no, we're going to leave it longer. So I've never done this haircut on Andrew, but I know that if I wanted to go in and do it, I'd have to use completely different lengths because he's got the bitchiest crown in the world, and it's so irritating, and it drives me insane, which is why I want to leave his hair longer. Patrick's got, it's there, but it's pretty well behaved, so I know that I'm not going to really struggle with this crown. I don't have to worry about it. But we're into balance now. The top's nice and square. Just cross-check it. Make sure everything's good there. I cross-check it up. Maybe you look in front of me, Martin. Just by pulling everything up. If there's a little bit sticking out, take it away. But you shouldn't really be finding anything because if you did it right, it's done right. So now we're at this point of the haircut. I can see it. I'm going to dry the hair now, and we're going to do the fade at the end. Because for me, especially if you're working in a mirror situation, and then you're doing your fade, and you go and you go, bam, hard line. The haircut looks disgusting. The customer goes, oh my God, this is not going to go well. But if you have the top perfectly coiffed, and then you set that line in the fade, the customer goes, okay, I think we'll ride this out. I think it's going to be okay. So I'm going to dry the top so Patrick gets something to get excited about. And then we'll start with the fade on the sides. So what I'm going to use to dry the top is a little bit of a secret potion that I've been using quite a bit lately. Grooming tonic and fiber gel. The grooming tonic keeps the hair a little bit greasy. The fiber gel gives the hair a little bit more structure when I dry it in. And the fiber gel alone is very dry. Fiber gel is great if you're blow drying hair with a little bit of grease in it. Grooming tonic's great if you want to blow dry super clean hair. But the grooming tonic, especially when you're working with a pompadour, is not the strongest product in the world. So since I have cut the hair technically into shape, I know that I can give it a little bit extra love with the blow dryer to really get it into that pompadour. So I'm putting just a littlest drop of fiber gel into my grooming tonic. I'm going to mix this together in between my palms. It's really important you mix it together because if you layer the fiber gel on top of the grooming tonic, you'll have points where there's a lot of fiber gel, points where there's a lot of grooming tonic. But this, when it's thoroughly mixed together and you have a real solution, you can really work it into the roots of the hair and dry it up into shape. So now the blow dryer is going to be loud. So if you have a question to ask about blow drying, you're going to want to do it now. You're going to want to maybe save it to the end, just because I'll be shouting anyways, and I would rather get a little bit of extra knowledge out about the blow drying at the start. So with blow drying, I'm going to be using a Denman 7-row brush because, especially at this point in the haircut, I know I really want to give it that style. I really enjoy working with it as well. It really works the hairs into an even line. It makes the styling easier at the end. For me, I just get a lot more control with it, as I can still dry the hair naturally by paying attention to the natural fall of the hair, but I can also give it a little bit of extra shape, especially knowing that Patrick takes good care of his hair. He wants to wear it in a really tight pompadour. This makes a huge difference. And it's extra cool if you get the scar once. I'm going to be using the hair dryer alternating between medium heat and medium force. So actually, when I go to polish it at the end, I'm going to start with medium heat and high force just to get some of the wetness out of the hair. Start to polish it with the medium heat and the medium force. And then at the end, I might give it a little extra heat just to get that front up.
Quick question.
So, medium heat.
Quick question. What's a good way to maintain a hole with grease during the hot weather?
You want to buy heavier grease. Even if you're using a softer, like a slick pack or something, you normally want to use a green, like the green for. It's good to go a little bit heavier with the grease because it increases the amount of wax, and that's good. The wax is what melts slower. You also want to be making sure that you're using the right grease, because a lot of grease, if it's based on, if you get a piece of grease in front of you and it's like 89% coconut oil can melt in your hands. It gets 27, 28 degrees out. It's not going to stay tough in the hair. If you get a grease in your hair that's microcrystalline wax that melts at a much higher temperature, you'll be able to get a lot more hold out of it. Also, don't be afraid to put a little extra grease in. And the summer is also a great time for water-based hair products because they're going to solidify in the hair. They're going to set in the hair a little bit. Your hair's going to stay in shape. You know, you're going to get the pool and it's going to come out, but you also get to do that like that I can't do it, but like Aquaman splash when you get out of the water, and it's going to be, maybe Andrew could do it. He's got long hair, but I do that big splash, and yeah, the summer's the best time for water-based, man, because especially in the Netherlands, it rains all winter here, so grease is awesome. But here, like if you're going in and out of the water, maybe you want your hair a little bit cleaner, you get a little of that like sea salt look in it, and it's super cool. So buy water-based if you want grease in the summer. Also, that's the beautiful part about the REUZEL line is all the parts can be mixed. So if you want a lot of hold, you can put the light blue in your hair. But if you want it to stay in a little bit more, you put the light blue in your hair. You put a little bit of the pink in it as well. And I mean, you could stand your hair. You can stand your hair 30 centimeters tall if you wanted to with that. That stuff is so strong if you mix it, and the smells go really well together. So now I'm just getting all that hair back. It's really important that you keep moving the hair dryer around, because if I just dry here, that air is still wrapping around the head and drying the roots. So I want to make sure that I'm really drying all the hair and pushing it in the direction of how I want it to lay and how it wants to go. So I'm really especially in the back here, because I don't want volume, I'm really wrapping it around the head. Because I want all this to just lay so tight into the back. So this really gets all that little extra space out of it. And this is medium heat, high force. Again, I always work both sides, so we're going around to the other side now. And it's especially nice to start with this kind of drying, because this, a customer definitely feels like they could do, because it's just, I mean, it's just this. This also knocks a lot of that moisture out of the hair while you're pushing the hair in the final direction, but doesn't get it so hot that you're setting it into a final shape. Because I could still go through and reshape all of this hair if I need to, because I'm not blasting at high force. I'm really getting the roots nice and dry, and I'm not burning the customer's scalp. If this was high force and I was doing this close to the head, it would be torture on the scalp. Even at this force, this heat, it's really important to be mindful of the distance between the hair dryer and that sensitive skin on the scalp. all that hair where I want it to lay. You can see that graduation that we did into the crown already coming out. You can see there's not a lot of weight in there. Already that's really blending nicely, which means when we go in with the blending shears, and we go in and texturize the cut, the job's going to be a lot easier for us because you don't have to take anything out because the blend's already in there. We just need to refine the shape of the haircut. Hair back, making sure it all stays connected into that final shape we're looking for. And then we're just picking it up a little bit, making sure those roots are dry. But still, I'm just trying to get the hair roughly into shape. I'm not setting in the shape yet, but I'm still trying to get flash the moisture. You can see that haircut shape is already taking, or that haircut is already taking shape. And now I'm really going to start to try and refine that shape. So I'm going down medium heat, medium force, because I really want to be able to really lift that hair at the root, paying attention to the natural fall, but just extenuating the ball. It's a pop. It needs to be a little bit. So we're getting a little bit of lift there. See, a little bit of lift there. It's important you snap at the roots, you heat the hair, but you never want, especially as the hair cools, your brush to slow. You want it to go slowly, but if it stops, there's going to be a bend in the hair. And that you're going to have to wet the hair to take that back out. So you want to really cool. I mean, Elvis had a fade. Keep bending at the roots, coming into the natural fall. Just letting that hair come up into the shape. This too, it's really important that I keep this on that medium heat and that medium force because I don't want to do this too quickly. I want to make sure that I have time to see, is that how I want it to look? So that's the beautiful part with this, is I can really make sure that hair is, if it looks half as cool on camera as it does in person, then it's fucking cool. Maybe get better lighting for sure. So you can see that shape's in there because of all that technique we used at the start. The hair is really able to support its shape, but there's still maybe some weight in there, some weight in the back here, and of course that razor fade we're getting to at the end. Now you can see the hair here grows over a little bit, so I'm not going to take that out, especially because I like that swirl in the hair. I don't like the palm straight to the back. I like a little bit more of that classic looseness to the palm. So I try and give it a little bit of wave, a little bit of bend. Here, you see that root grows this way. I want that to pop. Let's pull it the other way. A little bit of heat. But you can see the brush rotates. And that's what gives it that little bit of bend. That little extra. I mean, Martin can attest to this when he did his James Dean shoot. That's what gives it that, like, James Dean look. That's what gives it that Elvis look. Is that little bit of bend and wave. It's neat, but it's natural. How are we looking, Patrick?
Doing well.
You guess. Patrick here. Let me show. So Patrick is, 2 years now, I think it's been. So every time I go to cut Patrick's hair, I mean, we don't get to this point. Normally the fade's done and stuff at the end. And I go and I hold up the mirror, and he goes, "Great job, man. It looks fantastic." And I go, "Oh, thanks, man." But maybe after about 18 months, Patrick goes, "No, you don't need to grab the mirror." And we've all had that moment with customers before where it's like, we trust you, man. It's okay. I believe you. And you're like, "No, it's a good check for me. This is what you're paying for. I'm very proud of it." So I give that whole spiel to Patrick. He goes, "No, you really don't have to do it." I'm like, "No, man, like it really means a lot to me if you see the whole haircut." And he goes, "I'm not going to see the whole haircut. I can't see the haircut." Because Patrick is what percentage blind?
9%.
9%?
That's what I.
So 9%. So he really just can't see the haircut. And his brother would always give him a nod to make sure it was okay. So I'd be holding up the mirror and Patrick would be looking at his brother. And he let me do this for like a year and a half.
Yeah, that's how it happened.
Yeah. So yeah, this point, like I said at the start, I'm super excited because this is looking super cool. We're getting some wave in there. We're getting a really strong silhouette. We get that extra bulk you see in that crown where it really just wants to lift as it kind of transitions into that top. We got a bit of refining to do for sure. The haircut's not done, but we're certainly in a better place than when we started. But you can see how that strong technique already works to blend in a lot of this graduation. There's not a lot of weight on the inside. So when we go in with the blenders, it'll be more about making the haircut more refined, really making sure to just chip away at those little imperfections than building the haircut. You can see like in here, we can maybe take out some weight just to get this to lay nice, stuff like that. But we're doing the fade now. What is probably why you guys are all here. That's why I did the boring stuff first. We can root out all the cool people. So we're gonna go into the fade now. So I'm just gonna check that baseline again, just to see if there are a couple little dark spots. I think we're all good. And then I'm going to. Now, I've been doing a lot of talking, so I'm definitely slowed down quite a bit. Normally, this is quite a fast process. It's especially that beginning process. You really you can see, you just bang it out, you just get through it. And then the fading something we do all day. This is how I fade, but if you look at this and you go, okay, that top's really cool, but he did the world's most garbage fade. I understand. I'm still learning, but you can do it your own way, and don't tell me. So I'm going to go in, and I like to leave about a comb of distance here, because that's going to give me a nice space to create the blend. And I'm going to just set a bald line there. This is my favorite part, because I get to just like jam the hair off, and that's for me it's just very fun. But it's really important that you leave a lot of space when you do this, because when you think about fading, where you want the darkness to be, there's probably a good like 2 or maybe 3 centimeters below that point where the fade actually begins, so you can reach that darkness. So I know that for me, a little bit of contrast is good. So I don't need a huge amount of space, but I want to make sure that I have enough space that I'm not just running, my half over my 1, over my 0, all in the same line. So Patrick walks out and he sees a line in the middle. He doesn't see any transition.
That's very nice, Milky. Brett Dam, you asked if you're interested in what courses are offered through your barbering school, and I'm a licensed barber in the States. Brett, I dropped a link in the comments, and you can visit that at scoreandbarber.nl. That'll give you all the information you need to know about our courses there in Rotterdam.
Yeah, we've got some really great educators. We've got Lisa, who is, I think, one of probably the finest barbers that Rotterdam has ever seen. All of our customers are very sad that she does not cut in the shop and that they have to look at all of her beautiful models in the school. We've got Duncan, the dapper one, and he's easy to recognize because I think he sleeps in a 3-piece suit. I think he showers in a 3-piece suit. I think he changes his clothes in a 3-piece suit. It's
we have a parlay going on. How many suits does Duncan actually own?
I mean,
my guess was 50 plus.
Yeah, that's a lot of suits.
I was thinking at least 50 plus.
Sorry?
I was thinking at least 50 plus.
I mean, the thing with Duncan's magic is he knows how to mix the different parts of different suits to create his specific suit. And Duncan is very, I think Duncan would also have some suits that surprise you. Duncan's a little bit weird. So we're going in, and now we've got that bald line in there. And then I'm just going in with my skeleton trimmer to get that really just about as close to the skin as I can. Just really making that transition. But again, a fade is about transition. You can't drive your trimmer all the way back up to your bald line. You've got to leave yourself a little bit of space. Fading is really, we work with length when we create fades, but we're not actually looking for the length. We're looking for a gradient. We're looking for the way the light passes through the hair into the scalp to create a transition from bald to length. So it's really that transition from dark to light that creates an actual fade more than the length does. Which is why when you have like covered sides, you wouldn't call a 4 on the sides a fade because there's no light passing through. You do the same motions as a fade. You are fading in a way, but you are not. That's what defines like a taper versus a fade, is the light passing through the hair. Because you're tapering when you fade the sides, and then you're wow, okay. We're gonna work a little bit quickly. I'm almost out of time. So we're just going through. We are knocking that line in. Again, this is a process that I've spent a lot of time on just because we're talking so much, we're answering some questions. I'm really making sure to show you guys every step. But this is a really quick way of working in the shop to make sure that you get that best result right away. Just setting that line, really making sure to continue that transition. And this part I do all the way around the head, but then when I do the fade, it's just on that one side. I'm going to go in with the shaver, which I don't know where I put it. And with the shaver. And again, just working that transition, just going to take a little hair off, so we're down to the skin. When you're working with fading, I like to work with my method usually, is I set this bald line in, and then I fade up to the open lever on the clipper, and then I fade to the 1, or I fade down from the 1, and then I fade down from the 2 guard, just so I can secure that blend all the way from that lightness to the darkness in the fade. There you go. You'll see that this all will lighten up, so it's not going to be a low fade, even though right now that bald line looks very low. We're going in, half, all the way open. Setting in enough space that I can still secure that transition. Really using the shape of the skull. I'm really just angling my clippers the littlest bit here. You see they're not flat on the head, they're actually lifted out so that my clipper is in the shape of the fade as I rock the clipper back and forth with just a couple of teeth. Just to, when you point cut a line with the scissors, you get a soft transition. It's the same way with a clipper. When you point cut with the clipper like this, you're not creating new lines, you're just softening. And you can see that's exactly what you get here. Does that look good on camera?
Yeah.
Well, besides the hard line. So now we're at the 1, open. We're going a little bit higher, just feeling for the shape of the skull. You notice there's a dent in the head there, but because I kept myself enough space and I kept a little extra length in that baseline, I'm not worried about that dent because I know that is above that contouring of the fade. So now I'm just working the clipper slowly down to close. Just like that. Go through. Half open. You don't need to go in with the half all the way open because then it is the same length as a closed 1. So it's really about your comfort with the technique, your comfort with the fading, and your comfort with the patron's head. Especially if you're doing really soft fades, it's always best to use as many points along that lever as you can to just really space out the fade. But because I want to leave a little bit of weight in the fade, because then you get that nice parallel line between here and the top, I think it'll really shine through. So we're going with that 2, and I'm doing just kind of big scoops with the 2 because all the hair should be shorter than this. But if there's just by chance something I missed, I want to make sure that I know exactly where I'm headed between my guards and my comb. Okay, there, really softening that line. 1.5 now, open. Again, you don't need to go all the way open with it because you did just hit it with that 2 guard. And if you guys work and you count your guards by millimeters, the 2 is the 6 millimeter, the 1.5 is the 4.5 millimeter, the 1 is 3 millimeters, and the half is a 1.5 millimeter. I can do the other side in the millimeter guard terms if you guys are more comfortable with that. I don't know where everyone's watching from. I know every time I see centimeter or millimeter, all my friends in America, they're like, oh, we get to watch, Milky do his thing, are completely lost. Because when you watch the American news and they're talking about something, it's like, how many alligators distance should you stay away from someone during the corona crisis? And it's like, you got to stay 2 alligators away from each other. Yeah, 2 alligators away from each other. Or, a pothole. I saw this one that was a pothole in the road. And we're refining the fade all the way down now. So we're back to the 1 guard, open and close, where they're talking about the space, like, of a pothole in the road. And the news report is like, yeah, man, you could fit like 6 washing machines in that hole. You see, we're just transitioning down. I gotta tell you, Patrick used to walk into the shop, and I used to crap my pants a little bit because I thought Patrick had the hardest hair in the world to fade. I thought it was so fucking difficult. But then when I started fading like this, and I just thought, okay, well, this is a little easier now. It's really the biggest difference, because it was this dent in the back for me that really killed my fading with Patrick's hair. Is once I started taking that little bit lower baseline into the fade, it became so much easier. So I'm going with my blending shears now, and I'm going to take out a little bit of that weight at the top of the fade. Just a little scissor over comb to connect this. What I like about these blending shears is they take away a lot of hair. So it's nearly a straight line that I'm blending in, but it's just the littlest bit softer. So as I fade, you get a little bit more of that transition there. There we go. Go through there, get a little bit shorter with the finer teeth of the comb. If you see something you really want to touch up in the fade too, go ahead and do it straight shear over the comb. That's, I think, actually what I'm going to do now, because I'm still seeing a couple things. This is where using maybe a little bit bigger scissor too really works, because you can kind of just, with the tips of it, just punch in, just take out a little bit of that extra darkness. Curtis, I know that we're probably pretty close on time. Do you guys want to keep going, or should I cut it off here, just do a little blending on the side, and then we're good to go? Curtis?
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's keep going. So I'm looking for weight now on the side.
I got one more question for you there.
Yeah.
Do you ever use detachable blades, Alex asked?
That is what I started barbering with. I still have a big case of them, but I do not have a clipper in Europe that does it. I really like them for tapered sides. I think they work really nice with the clipper over comb technique, because they take away all of the hair every single time. They cut so smooth on the sides when you're doing you're going in with the 3 or the 4 or the 3 3/4. You're going with your 2.5. But when I'm doing skin fade, when I'm doing razor fades, skin fades, bald fades, whatever you want to call them, for me, it's always been an adjustable clipper. I like how much control I get, how I can really go in and pick out certain points. I don't have to use the blades as much. I can really use my eyes more, because I can manipulate the tool better. But they're awesome for tapered sides. They're so cool for tapered sides, because they just saw hair away like no tomorrow.
And Brittany asked, how do you pronounce REUZEL? I think I just answered that for her.
I
and
have
also
you should probably ask Andrew or Patrick, because I'm American. I still
the true Dutch pronounce of REUZEL.
Yeah. Well, let's say the name of the shop as well.
School.
Yeah, I can never get Scorum right either.
Yeah.
And yes, Brittany, those are Babyliss clippers.
Yes. So now you can see what I'm doing, just to blend that top into the sides a little bit more, because the line is right. I'm just going over the line now, and you see there's hair there, and I'm just taking a little bit out. This is going to soften. It's going to give the top a little bit more lightness. It's going to really let that top transition into the sides. You can see how smooth that transition now is in the back. It's really going to also help the hair grab that product we're going to put in at the end, because these feathered ends will really, they're just going to grip the product so much nicer. So We're just grabbing, you can see that transition there. We're going a little bit deeper into it as we go a little bit farther forward because I want a little bit more short hair to really pop that hair up. But this is really, you can see the ends are totally full still. They're just a little bit softer. I'm not taking any length away. I'm not thinning the hair at all. I'm just blending it a little bit into the sides. I'm just giving it a little bit of a feathered texture on the ends. So I'm just looking for this gap in the transition here, bringing it out to square, and then just letting that hair drop away, lifting it, kind of rolling it back a little bit, letting that hair just drop away, just so I get as much transition as possible. So you can see that that's just refining the shape of the haircut. It's taking that little bit of bulk away in the front. Okay. Excellent. So now, because I've talked too much and I've run my hands a little bit too slow, we're at the end of our time. So I'm going to have to do the other side afterwards. So I'm just going to show you all out. I'm going to finish the one side. So it's the end of the haircut. I'm going to go in and I'm just going to give the front a little bit more heat. I'm going to really make sure that it's in a very similar shape to what I'm going to finally do with the product. Something I know I can do with this product, but by giving it a little, just a little extra shape with the hair dryer, I know that it's going to just be easier to get that product into shape. Especially if you want to go in and take a photo, this is really going to make your photo pop. A little extra force there. I'm going to go in with the new REUZEL fiber cream because I want the hair to stay pliable. I want it to stay a bit more natural looking. I want to get, again, a little bit of a loose look to match some of the tightness, that really strictness of the fade. Really make sure it's spread through the hair. On that one side. Really nice and even in there. And then I'm just going to work it up into shape. The great product of using these at home, the great part of this product and using it at home, and this is something I tell all my customers, is you're done and you can't see it anymore. This is true with the white. This is true with the clay, the dark blue. It's true with the gray. Any of our creamier or white products in a container go into the hair white and then disappear when they're worked through. So this is really easy for the customers to work with because they know when they've spread that product through the back, they've spread that product through the front, they've gotten it down to the roots because they can see that hair still a little bit colored with the product and they know that they need to work a little bit more. And they can see that they only put product in the front and they need to put a bit more in the back. So one of the best tricks for volume you have is you use gravity to do your work. You can see you can just lift that hair up a little bit, tap it into the shape there. This is why I like using the longer pick as well. You're just letting gravity do its work. There's a little gap here you just want to fill in. But this is, again, where if you want it a bit looser, you could run your hands through it. If you want to keep it tight, you can go in and you can even maybe refine it with a hairbrush or the fine teeth of your comb. You go through this, it's still a little spot actually.
Looks awesome, Jason.
Thank you. Well, this side looks really good. The other side, I think, needs a little love still, but we will get to that.
We'll get to that. If you would, Jason, I'm going to put your Instagram up on screen. Jason will post final photos of his model on his Instagram at Milky
if I don't
the Barber.
Put the other side up horribly, but you'll definitely see this side.
Jason, I want to thank you for taking your time out today after working so hard.
Thank you. And like I said, you guys can kind of follow along on my Instagram afterwards. I'm sorry I talked so much and didn't do the other side. I'm sure there's a lot of things you guys already knew I didn't have to say. So thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much for joining Patrick, Andrew, Martin, and I in the Holy Ashtray in Rotterdam. And we hope to see you either in the shop or in the school as soon as life gets a little